What's up? Let's talk guitar amplifiers for a bit. This is my Marshall JVM 100. It is a very big, heavy, loud, and obnoxious amplifier, but it's also very fun! It's the most fun you're ever gonna have in your miserable life. It's kinda like having sex, I think. This one is a 100 watt amplifier. And what does that mean? Well, let me show you, let me illustrate to you. This here is my Lenny IRT-15 amplifier. Can you notice something different? It's smaller. It's much smaller and much lighter than this guy. And it's much less loud. How less loud? Well, this one is very loud, and this one is obnoxiously loud. These two are tube amplifiers. More on that later. And this... This is my Hotto. It is a transistor or solid-state amplifier, and it's a single watt. It's very adorable. I like it. It's not very loud, but you know, it works well. And like I mentioned, these two are tube amplifiers. And what does that mean? Okay, let me show you what I mean. Okay, so here at the back of the amp, we can see the tubes. These four glass thingies and more around the small guys, these are all tubes. They are the amplification element that makes the sound go from this to this. They are the most beautiful thing in the world. They are a miracle of engineering, because when you play guitar, you're actually generating electricity. And then the electricity goes into the tube, an electron beam actually amplifies it, so it's beautiful. It's magical. It's lovely. I love these things. The small guys are the pre-amplification tubes, and the big four guys are the power amplification tubes. Also, don't go prodding on the tubes while the amp is on, because you know these are very high voltage. I think over 400 volts go over the tubes, so it's not a good idea to go poking and prodding while the amp is... Also, very important to note that tubes is kind of a North American term, while valves is a more European term. You can see here it says valve, because valves, this is a British amplifier. You can see here it's made in Inglaterra by Marshall. So yeah, they call it valves over there. Another thing that is fantastic about tubes is how beautifully they glow. Okay, let me see if I can capture this for you, because it's really freaking nice. Hang on. Ain't that absolutely gorgeous? Holy moly. I love tube amps, man. Now remember that I mentioned that you have the pre-amplification and the power amplification. Well, there are different amplification circuits within the same thing. The preamplifier is where most of the tone lives, while the power amplifier, which is the big four dinguses here, is what's gonna drive the speakers and make them be very loud and very like boof, boof, boof. In some amplifiers, you're gonna have an effects loop. This amplifier has two of them, and they stand between the pre and the power amplifier. They're very useful if you wanna isolate the preamplifier or the power amplifier. And I love the naming convention here, preamp out and power amp in. I wish more companies did this. Good job, Marshall. Good job. You did good. Okay, I'm on a freehand camera here because another thing that's very important, the impedance. These amplifiers that have the head and the speaker cabinet separate, well, they're called heads and speaker cabinet. And it's very important to not f this up, okay? Here you have the impedance of the output of the amplifier, and here have the impedance of the input of the amplifier. So here you have, see, 1 times 8 ohms, and mono, which means only one channel, 8 ohms. So don't mix them up. If you do, bad things can happen. Another thing that I forgot to mention about preamplification and power amplification is that all the controls that you see here, and in your amplifier as well, that has the bass, middle, treble, which is called the tone stack, and also where the distortion happens, it happens in the preamplification circuit. That's all preamp. Preamp is where most of the tone lives, okay? And the presence and resonance control, if your amp has that, is gonna affect the power amp. You get distortion by overloading the tubes and making them scream in horrible f***ing agony. They hate it. Or maybe they like it, I don't know, maybe they're into that sort of stuff, but that's what's happening. You're making the tubes scream and overload, or overdrive. See, that's where that comes from. Also, speaking of preamp and power amps, I need to mention this here. There was a brief period in the 80s and the 90s that it was very popular to sell them separately. So you could buy in rack format preamps and power amps. These two here that I have, the JMP1 and the ADA MP1, They're preamps only, so they have no power amplification. If you want to hear them in all their glory, you need to connect them to either a power amp or to a mixer board. But be careful, because if you're not running them through a speaker or like a guitar speaker, they're gonna sound like fried buttholes. I mean, listen to this. Yeah, it's not very good. So, you gotta have to have either a power amp or some sort of impulse response going on, or filtering or whatever, to make them sound good. Also, I didn't talk a lot about transistor amplifiers, but I have one here. This is my first guitar amplifier. It's a piece of dog shit. It's terrible, it's horrible, it sounds like as and it is being demoted nowadays to my white noise machine while I sleep. True story, I'm not kidding about this. But it was a practice amp. There are good transistor amps out there. There are Randalls that are good, Dimebag Darrow use them, so keep an eye out for those. But this transistor amp, it's shit, but it's the only one that I know of that has the force button. Also, let me crack this one open so I can show you what makes it tick. So this is the inside of my very first guitar amplifier. You can see there's not much in here. There is no send return circuit, there's no bunch of fancy gain stages, which means having more than one tube. Here there's only one transistor, it's this guy. Transistors suck ass at dissipating heat. Tubes are very good at that, transistors not so much. So this guy needs to have this giant metal piece of crap on it so it doesn't burn up. It's kind of sad, really. And this is not even a pure transistor, it's actually an integrated circuit, so that means that there must be more than one transistor inside of it or something. I don't know, I'm a guitar player, I'm not really an electrical engineer, but I know a little bit about it. Oh yeah, one thing important, they're much tinier and much more easier to design around than tubes, but still, look at him. Look at this poor little guy. And one thing I'm gonna mention while I still have this guy on my lap here is that these amplifiers that have the amplification stuff and the speaker in the same enclosure, these are called combos. So every time someone says, hey, I have a combo amp, that's what they mean. And now I'm gonna put this guy away back near my bed because this guy stinks, holy. Ugh, yeah, it's not very nice, it's not very good. And now you guys didn't think I would end this video without talking about digital modelers. Now, digital modelers are just computers that are purpose-built to emulate everything that we talk about, cabinets, amplifiers, all the things. Some people love them, some people hate them. This is a very shitty one, I don't even have a good one. This one belongs to my wife, believe it or not. And there's a bunch of good ones out there. There's the Quad Cortex, there's the Camper, that's the f***ing XFX. But I don't like them. It's like eating a steak made out of styrofoam. They suck, they're sad. And seriously, don't even get me started on fucking software modelers. Look at this guy. He's so hard trying to be an amplifier, being like, oh, look at my face, I have a head, a tone stack, and you can choose even the little cabinets to go. But it's all a lie. It's all the computer trying to be something that it isn't. This is very sad, this is very stupid, I don't like it. No, I don't like it. Well, I think now you should know everything you need to know about guitar amplifiers. I hope you're happy. You know more than your average guitar player. Be proud. You're a seasoned veteran now. Now, one thing that is very, very important to note as well. Guitar players are very, very sensitive about their favorite amplifier type, okay? Some people might go out there and say that modelers are great because they are convenient and they're not heavy and they don't break your back and give you a hernia. Just let me tell you, they're wrong, okay? Okay, tubes are still the best kind of amplifier ever. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Best tone, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, okay? Don't let any one of the modeler guys tell you otherwise, okay? I'm fucking serious. Okay, I might have gotten a bit carried away there, but seriously. A lot of what I described here for this specific amplifier, most professional grade amplifiers will have as well. The features may vary, some have more fuff about it, some others might have less fuff about it. I should have said fluff, but I don't care. The important thing is that you have fun, and don't forget, the big tube ones are still the most fun that exists. Okay, I'm kidding. By the way, thanks for listening to my mess. Goodbye, everyone. Have a nice one.